We'll get started. Good evening. Welcome to the first meeting for 2024, working into fiscal year 2026, I think, correct? Yep. Number of items on the on the meeting this evening associated with last year, but I'll call a meeting to order. Is there any public participation?
No one is online, Mr. Chairman.
Online, no one here. Thank you. But just first off, I do want to, I sent an email out. I'd just like to have everybody introduce themselves, but I'll start out with Christian. Christian's a new member to the committee. Christian's over here to my right. You could just say hello to everybody.
Hello.
And I'll just have everybody go around the room and say hello. But Christian, just a little bit of your background. We've met, so
Yeah, of course.
But
Yeah. So I moved to Wakefield end of 2020. Currently work as a manager of FP&A in Somerville, a company called Smart Bear. Excited to be here. I mentioned to Jim when I interviewed for this, my dad did Economic Development Commission in my hometown in Connecticut. So I've always had the bug to kind of join some sort of committee. So here I am.
Okay. Thank you. And I'd like to, if you could just go around the room to the right, starting with Ed, just introduce yourselves and then I'll call you out on the screen, please.
I'm Ed Bean, currently the finance director in Somerville, and been on the finance committee for 3 years. Lived in Wakefield for 7 years.
Joe Bertrand. I've been on the finance committee for
Many years.
far too long. Almost 30 years.
Thank you, Joe.
Lori Wheeler, this is my second stint. Did stint for a while, took a break, back on. Some freelance CPA work. Welcome.
Terry?
Trey Howell. I think I've been on FinCom since 2020. I think it was when the pandemic started. And I've been living in Wakefield since 2016. I'm a banking and finance lawyer.
Thank you.
I'm Stefan Chase. I currently work at MIT Lincoln Labs as the lab's funding manager. I've been on the committee now for, I think, 5 years.
Great, thanks. Dennis, could you introduce yourself, please?
Dennis Hogan, been on the committee for, I guess, since 1999, and currently retired, and getting ready for my last hurrah. Thank you.
Well, there you go. That's news. Thank you. Amy?
Hi, Amy Forsyth. I've lived in Wakefield for 20 years. I joined the committee in 2020, right as the pandemic was starting. I think I managed one in-person meeting before we were shut down. I am a portfolio manager for the wealth management group of Cambridge Trust.
Thank you very much. Dawn?
Yep. Don Ravenel. I think I'm in my third or fourth term on the finance committee. I recently retired from Mass General Brigham Finance, and moved to Wakefield in 2015, though my wife grew up here. So
Thank you. Brian?
Hi, Brian Cusack. I am Chairman Emeritus of the Finance Committee, and have
We vote on that.
been on the committee since the late aughts, and I work in IT security in my other life, and have been in Wakefield for about 24 years.
Thanks. Bill?
I am Bill Boudry. This is my second stint, like Lori, on the FinCom, so I think it's about 9 years in total. I am retired, but doing some consulting, and I'm pretty much a townie. I grew up here, spent most of my life in Wakefield.
Great, thanks. Evan?
Hey, Evan Kenny. I've been on the committee since 2018. Spent some time as a mayor's chief of staff in Massachusetts, and a myriad of other things in the private sector. I was also on the school committee in Wakefield back in the day, 2013. I did a term there. Nice to meet you, Christian.
Me, you.
Great, thank you. Appreciate you all for doing that. Welcome. All right, we'll open up. Item number 3 is some items report of the nominating committee. So in Govenda, there were a number of meeting minutes that were available, but the nominating committee, please.
Yes. So happy to speak up. We are a committee of which I have been the chair for the past 2 years, but it was my first actual meeting with the committee, and we deliberated on who to nominate for the position of assistant chairperson. And we had some terrific people step up to, volunteer to consider being part of the role. And in the end, we made a decision to put forward the candidate with the longest experience on the committee. And, I think that, it was a great group of people. And so we're pretty excited to put forward Stefan. And so we need to put this to a vote, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. So first off, you have the meeting minutes. So would someone please make a motion for the vice chair to be appointed Stefan Chase?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Ed. Any discussion about the vice chair position? All those in favor in the room?
Aye.
Anybody on video? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Unanimous. Appreciate that. And as Chair Brian said, it's great. There were other people that are willing to volunteer, because any committee like this, we have to have people that help make it go all the time. So I appreciate that. And thank you much for being willing to help out a little more than you normally do. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. You and I can get together some point in the near future. We'll just chat about a few things.
Yes.
Super. All right, next item on the agenda was the report of the forecasting subcommittee. So Dan is the person that usually chairs the forecasting subcommittee. So there were meetings. I'll give highlights, or Don can give highlights. So on the committee, it is Don and Ed and Dan. I sit in on it. So I'll welcome if either one of you want to do it, or I'll be glad to just summarize the minutes.
You can summarize.
Yep. So thank you. So the committee meets as necessary, but certainly at the beginning of the cycle to sort of talk about possible money return to the accounts and forecasting 2025 and beyond. And you can read the summaries, but in the end, the result for fiscal year 24 was free cash of 11.67 million. There were 2 million returned to the general fund. 1 million of that was associated with healthcare. So, a solid amount of money returned to the fund. And then the group talked about forecasting for FY25 and beyond. The new growth was a little disappointing so far, I think at 25, right? Is that how we?
Yeah, we had hoped for a little bit more, and mainly due to some construction delays on the big projects, what was going around. So, Kevin and I did a deep dive with the director of assessments and kind of mapped it out, what he feels will come, because they're under construction over the next 2 or 3 years. So I think we're feeling good when we add to that number, but it's in fairly good shape.
Yep. So as you close 24, again, you had 11.6 in free cash. You'll see tonight, we're going to use 3 million and change to balance budget from free cash. Correct, Steve?
Right. Yep.
And then the forecasting and so forth, local receipts, it was sort of agreed to be about 10.5 as for an expectation, and a possible return of $500,000 to the general fund at the end of the fiscal year. Again, based on projections, based on activities, working with Steve, Kevin, and Dan on the forecasting model. So Dan has a spreadsheet that is a quote unquote forecasting model that we, the finance committee, use, and Steve and Kevin reference it. They don't live and die by it, but Kevin and Steve work their finances as well through their own channels. But this is one of the things we talk about each year. And basically, we had forecasted growth to be about 4% for all the departments. And looking into 2026, we felt the process would be the same as 2025, meaning you want to only budget for additional costs associated with personnel or contracts or things of that nature. Obviously, something significant or substantial needs to be justified. It'll have to be, talked about and worked through. But that was really sort of the synopsis of the forecasting subcommittee. And I don't know, Don or Ed, if there's anything else you wanted to hit on, please.
Well, just one point I want to make, because I looked at the free cash of 11,670,000 went on the DOR website. I was just curious to see where that stood historically. And I look back for 20 years, and this looks to be the highest free cash certification in the town's history. So kudos to Steve and Kevin for this.
It's all Kevin. I'd spend every nickel, right?
Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah. Well, I think, no, it's really a great synergy between Kevin and I, Finance Committee, Town Council, School Committee. We really look at every budget, and it's been good, and we can project forward. And we feel forward we're going to be in good shape. So thank you.
Good. Any other comments on the Finance Committee?
So, Jim, I think the only other thing is we were somewhat cautious about looking forward in terms of the healthcare return in the coming fiscal year, thinking that the rates are going to go up fairly significantly, and some of the tools that we've used to return money are we're pretty much reaching the end of how much we can squeeze out of that. So.
Yep. No, well, thank you. Yeah, there was a bit of a lengthy discussion on that. You're right. So every year, at least every year, the last X number of years, there's been a sort of a substantial return, I think, from the healthcare, from budgeted to actual, and as described. The costs are going up. The GIC, correct? Is it the GIC?
GIC is looking to they're looking to increase 8-10%.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know, but that's the tea leaves at this point.
Right. Right. Thanks, Don.
I mean, they'll do some plan design changes, which will help with that, but.
Right. Try to help out. Okay, that was the Finance Committee report. Fiscal year in review for 2024.
Yeah, very, very quickly, in a nutshell, thank you, Ed, for bringing that up. I can never recall in the last 17 years that we had reserves of this amount. And I think Kevin and I are very proud about that, particularly because I think we've increased services, we've increased reserves, and we did maintain our AAA bond rating, which is very important, saving a lot of money for the taxpayers on the wonderful school that Joe is building by hand, by himself. And we have another big borrowing to go next year. I guess I'm happy that rates came down 0.25% today, but we'll see what happens going forward. We borrowed $100 million at 3.63%. Was quite pleased with that. Not a bad deal. So we're going to try to keep doing that. Again, departments did a great job in returning money to the town. Our philosophy has been with them that, run your department, run it well. We look for trends. But if you ended up not spending everything in advertising for this year because whatever, maybe there weren't a lot of, public hearings for your department, we're not going to take that money away. Don't go and spend it all at the end. We look for trends and cut there, and they've done a real good job. I'm very comfortable with the forecast going forward as well because, Dan is only, or the forecast subcommittee, I shouldn't say Dan is only a very modest 500,000 return. I think we're going to exceed that between what receipts coming in and what the departments will return back. But even with those numbers, we look very good going forward over the next foreseeable futures. Better than we did last year. And even after this town meeting is done. And Kevin and I are very, Kevin more so than I, he's more conservative than I am, are very conservative on using receipts. We're using 8 million. We're using 8 million in local receipts. I think the forecasting committee is using 10.5. I know we're going to be wrong. It's going to be somewhere in between. I hope it expands way over that. But a lot of stuff is not necessarily recurring. Last year, we had $1 million for one in building permits for one project, 200 Corner Power. That was $1 million building permit fee. That's not coming back, but others are. So, no, we're moving our numbers up. The DOR is very happy with our conservatism. Really, I can't say enough what the departments did all year. And I don't know if there's any questions.
So that's, Steve, there was a memo in the packet on Govenda there, so the memo speaks on the first page of some of what Steve just described, and the rest of them are articles, but for reference, it is in the Govenda.
OPEB.
Jim, how much did the school provide us with? I know Mr. Sherman would,
$80,000.
Well, no, that was total education.
Oh, no, sorry.
It was about 20.
We can look at that. That's coming up later.
how much?
26,000. That's all.
They probably prepaid tuition, is that correct?
They did prepay
I would,
tuitions, yeah.
would drop the balance if they prepaid. They could
The
legally.
year before, they gave us significant more, didn't they not?
Closer to 450, I want to say.
That's what I thought.
But to their defense, they have been doing better on spending money on spending down the revolving account.
Revolving accounts.
They are doing, it's a constant negotiation, but they are doing better on that. In fact,
There'll be more to come.
meeting with
More to
next
come
week.
on this.
I'm sure there will be. No, I'm just, since Dan isn't here, I just thought I'd add a voice to it.
You're channeling your inner Dan.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And they did prepay a lot of sped tuitions,
So they returned 27K,
27K, yeah. I think.
26.9.
Prepay? How much did they prepay in sped tuitions?
Sorry.
$500,000, so that's,
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Anything else on that? Everybody good?
I just want to say at the end of this town meeting, assuming everything passes, and I'm assuming they will, we're going to be looking at still 10% reserves, which is in our wheelhouse, which I think will just grow at the end of the year, which what I'll be looking at, what the bond council will be looking at come next September, August, September.
Let's say, when is the next request?
Oh, it's September, so August is probably when we'll have our surveillance meeting.
Anybody else? Thank you, Steve. Okay, so now we move to town meeting. So town meeting is Saturday, November 16th.
Yes.
It's an 8 a.m. start. And on the agenda item number 4, there are a series of articles that, who's going to go through them? You, Kevin?
I'll start, if that's okay.
Again, in the memo from Steve, the articles are described. Go ahead.
It's actually a little bit better than the memo described on the Article 3, but we'll talk about that. So the first article that the FinCom will be, we'd like a favorable recommendation on is Article 2, and that's using free cash to balance the budget. The amount is $3,850,000. As I mentioned, at the end of this town meeting, we're still going to be well into, we'll have 10% of reserves, which I'm very happy about. And it is really because of the very conservative use of receipts that we have consistently done over the years, since I've been here anyway, that we're looking for this. Dan uses a higher number on the forecast, and we have a great discussion about that. And, but we're looking for 3.8 million. Pretty consistent. with what we talked about.
So we're going to need a motion for that. Is that right?
I would love one.
Can I get a motion for Article 2 for the free cash?
I moved above, what was it, 3.8?
3,850,000.
I moved the sum of 3,850,000, $3,850,000 for the purposes of Article 2.
Second the motion.
Second. So any discussion? So again, this is allocating free cash to balance previous budget. No, seeing no discussion. All those in favor?
Right.
Anyone opposed? Bill Boudry opposed. Everybody else for.
You opposed, Bill? Or for it? You're on mute. I
No,
think he
I'm
never took his
for.
hand.
I
He's for
voted,
it, okay.
Thank you. The camera was a little delayed. That was all.
He had the
Yeah, I'm
5-second delay
getting,
on Bill. We don't, you never know what
believe
he's
Bill.
gonna say. If
I
we had a
was
5-second
filling in
delay
for-
on some other people, we'd be a lot better off.
I was
Not
filling in
get
for
there.
Dan. I figured Dan would shake it up with a no vote.
Thank you. That was unanimous on Article 2 for the free cash. Very good.
Thank you. Article 3, if I may move on to that, Mr. Chairman, is probably, I'm going to say it's the most exciting article. Although people might argue with me that it's going to be the MBTA one that you don't need to vote on tonight. But Article 3 is to create a solar array on the Galvin School. The Permanent Building Committee had the foresight to, I'm going to say, wire, pipe, whatever, conduit the roof, or putting solar energy on top of it. Town council was very interested in this. We actually went out to bid. I think we had 12 or so companies that came out and took bid packages. 2 went to the mandatory bid meeting and 2 bid on it. And we looked at them both and worked with the light department and set up a bid and accepted that bid subject to town meeting, of course. So the total cost to retrofit or to put the solar panels on the Galvin School is $976,412, okay? However, the town is using $204,600 of ARPA funds. Okay, that's a difference from in your memo. They added more on Monday night. The light department is going to contribute $200,000. And that is because they retire or they own the renewable energy credits that they're very interested in having for a lot of their business models. Light department is also doing
Computers.
what happened?
Oh, I think it idle.
Does that mean?
There they are.
Oh, there they are. Okay. The light department is also doing a lot of the work out in front for the the infrastructure that's needed at their cost. So that's not even in this equation, but that's about another $160,000 worth of work or so. So that brings us down to the $571,812 that I'll be asking for free cash. But that's not the whole story, okay? The Federal Inflation Reduction Act actually allows the nonprofit, which what we are, we don't pay taxes, to get tax credits from the federal government, which is 30% of the cost of the project. So that's about $292,000. So at the end of the day, what we will be spending on tax levy is $279,012. The reason why we're going for the whole 571 is because there will be a delay. I know I'm not going to get those tax credits this fiscal year. If I do, that'll be great. We just won't spend the money, but I think it'll come next fiscal year. So what does that mean? That means that there is a less than 4-year return on investment for this cost. And the school department will save $89,000, $90,000 a year on electrical costs. So that's something you can look at in their budget, Joe, next year.
That's as soon as it's online, right?
As soon as it's online, and we think it'll be online
It's
by spring, summer of 2025. They want to get going right away. So it's a great project. I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to do great for us. I think Brian has his hands up.
You want to discuss? Do you want a motion first? Brian, you got
I
a
have-
question?
I did have a question. The question is, do we know the disposition of the roof space of the proposed and a building high school? Like, is there going to be any solar associated
Oh,
with
yeah,
this?
that's going to be all set and actually not just pre-wired, but put on.
be put on.
Actually,
Yeah,
Yeah.
aces.
That will
Thank
be
you.
all done
yeah.
through the assistance of the MLD.
I mean, as much as I rail about the MLD not giving us enough money on payment in lieu of taxes, they really are helping out in these other areas, so they're.
It still doesn't exist.
I still think
And I didn't have to say it.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd love a
I don't
motion.
mind saying that.
So just for the motion, you're gonna be looking for the use of free cash for $571,000?
571,812.
I move the sum of $571,812 out of free cash for the purposes of Article 3.
Second.
Brian, second, thank you. Any discussion on that? Okay, so again, we're allocating all the money, not gonna be using it in all likelihood between opera funds and.
Yeah, but
No, we're allocating,
The other balance.
it's $1 million project, let's call it. We're allocating, but, ARPA and MLD funds. You knock that off, it's 571,812.
Right,
We will also receive federal tax credits, but I don't think that'll come this fiscal
yeah,
year.
so we're covering the balance because.
Covering the balance because it'll probably come next fiscal year. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor of Article 3 for the Galvin School roof?
Aye.
No one opposed? Unanimous, thank you. Article 5.
Article 5 is I'm sorry that in the spring, I didn't have the clerical union contract settled. It has been settled now. It is a 3-year contract. Very consistent with the other contracts where the cost of living increases are 2.5% per annum. Actually, the same as the others. We added some steps at the end of each scale. And really did some smoothing on the steps where we didn't have we used to have steps where 1 year, all of a sudden, it jumped up like 4% and then jumped back down. And I can only liken that to say that whoever was on the negotiating committee at that time buried that in the steps and it just kept carried forward. So we tried to smooth that out so it's a little bit better in doing it. And we really did to get most of those in the 1.75% range. This is basically the same as the library contract that we settled in the spring, the same as all the other union contracts with cost of living increases, looking for $53,941 in free cash, because some of the clerical union members are paid out of the water and sewer enterprise accounts. We're looking for 6,119 of water receipts and 6,975 of sewer receipts. And this will, all our contracts on the town side are settled through the end of this fiscal year. Although I will tell you that DPW is up on July 1, so the laborers unions will be back into that one. But very benign, very happy with this contract at the end of the day. Of course, they started way higher than we ended up, which is what happens all the time.
Entertain a motion?
I move the sum of $53,941 for the purposes of Article 5 out of free cash.
Can you do the water and sewer?
Then
No, because I have no idea what
I
you
know, I
said.
didn't write down.
Okay.
I
did it too fast.
It was 6,119, right?
6,119 of water,
$1,119 from the
water receipts,
water receipts and
6,975 of sewer receipts.
$6,975 from the sewer receipts for the purposes of Article 5.
Second.
Second by Brian.
No, by Evan.
Evan, thank you, sorry. Questions? Ed?
Steve, how many folks are in the bargaining unit?
I'm sorry, 23,
23? And it's a 3-year contract
3-year, yeah.
expiring,
On June 30th, 2027.
Any other questions, comments?
And we'll still be here.
Pardon?
We'll still be here.
After the high school.
All those in favor of Article 5 for the clerical union contract as described?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Unanimous. Last one is Article 6, water and sewer supplement.
Kevin's going to do Article 6.
Article 6. We're recommending that we appropriate $160,975 from the sewer retained earnings and $501,119,000 from the water retained earnings to balance the fiscal 25 budgets, the water and sewer enterprise budgets. We set these budgets last fiscal year, and as part of the tax rate, we need to make sure that we have enough revenue to cover the expenses that we appropriated. So by doing those two amounts, where this past year, fiscal '24, the receipts for both water and sewer were extremely low. The consumption was down, not unique to just Wakefield. Surrounding communities have seen this also. So, and that's how we budgeted last year. So to get the approval of our tax rate by the Department of Revenue, we have to balance the water and sewer budget using these retained earnings.
What was the rate increase?
It was 5% for water, 0 for sewer. So
Town rate increase or MWRA?
in June of this past year, town council increased the water rates by 5%, sewer, 0. So
Zero for sewer. I should ask the council.
I think they were concerned that the reserves were too high. So by using these two amounts to balance the budget, it would leave the reserves for the sewer enterprise at approximately 600,000. But for the water, leaves approximately $20,000 in reserves.
Of course, as you stated, to file the tax recap, you're going to have a vote on it.
And I have talked with both Joe Conway and Ian Waite in DPW, where there was some concern that with the first round of bills that went out this year, revenue didn't look like it was coming up that much, but with the second round of billings, it's up about 20% in consumption. So we're hoping to replenish the reserves this fiscal year.
At the end of the fiscal year.
At the end of this fiscal year.
Thank you. These are retained earnings, right? Is that correct? Retained earnings. Any other questions? Okay.
I did fix the leak in my pool, so that might have been another problem.
I can't believe how the numbers they've done.
Yeah. They did rebound the second cycle.
Yeah.
Don, yes, go ahead.
Just a question. So is there an explanation for the variation in consumption?
Apparently
Last year
not.
was very, last year I think was very wet. It was a
I
wet-
can't remember it.
But
The
this
weather,
year,
yeah.
where it has been dry, I think that's what helped consumption.
Yeah, there was a period in that cycle where it just, there was a lot of rain. I can tell you, I remember not having my sprinklers on for like 2 months out of a cycle that one would not have expected that.
Yeah.
It rained every other day for some period. Actually, it rained every weekend for a year, it felt like. It wasn't quite that bad.
Summer was dry.
Oh, very nice.
Any other comments? I would entertain a motion.
I move the sum of $160,975 out of the water retained earnings account,
No, I'm sorry, 160
$169,775.
out of sewer.
At a sewer.
Oh, that's out of sewer.
Yeah.
Blow this up a little bit.
Yeah, sorry. Small for my
Sorry.
poor eyes. I move the sum of $160,975 out of the sewer retained earnings. Do you want them together or?
You can do them both. I think.
And
Both, yeah.
$501,119 out of the reserved earnings for water supplement account. For the purposes of Article 6.
Second the motion.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor of the motion for Article 6? Anyone opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so again, town meeting Saturday morning, 16th. Also, although we didn't go over it, the report from the administrator is in Govenda, and that outlines, all of the end of fiscal year. Joe had asked, who returned what money, all of the departments that returned, the rundown of the financial positions of each department is in here, along with, this will be in a book if you go to town meeting, and it's got a great summary at the end of it, and a list of other expenditures from available funds. So you can look at that. Lastly, we have minutes to approve. Well, not lastly. Next step would be the minutes to approve First one would be approving the June 27, 2024 Finance Committee meeting minutes.
Move to approve the June 27, 2024 Finance Committee minutes as drafted.
Second.
Evan, thank you. Second, any discussion? All those in favor of approving the motion for the June 27, 2024 Finance Committee meeting minutes? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next set of meeting minutes for the Finance Nominating Subcommittee meeting.
Move to accept?
second,
Moved it, I'm sorry.
Bill
I
Bill
did. Bill
moved it,
Boudreau
Dennis
and
seconded.
seconded.
Those were the folks that are part of the committee along with Brian. All those in favor of the meeting minutes for the Finance Nominating Committee Subcommittee meeting of August 19, 2024?
right,
Those involved, anyone opposed? Motion carries, unanimous. Next meeting minutes was October 24th for the Finance Committee Forecasting Subcommittee. Again, October 22, 2024.
So I move approval of the forecasting subcommittee.
Second.
Motion by Don, seconded by Ed. Any discussion about the meeting minutes associated with the Finance Committee Subcommittee on Forecasting? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Subcommittee meeting minutes approved. Last one was the meeting minutes associated with the Tri-Board meeting, which was October 28th, 2024. Meeting minutes.
I move we approve the tri-board meeting minutes for October 28, 2024 as drafted.
Second.
Any discussion?
Is that this? Right.
Tri-Board. All those in favor of the Tri-Board meeting minutes from October 28th, 2024? Anyone opposed? Okay, that covers the meeting minutes. Any committee comments? Next item on the agenda. Sure.
To Steve and Kevin, I've heard through my colleagues in municipal government that during these bond rating surveillance calls, the MBTA overlay district has been coming up. So I don't know if that's been the case in any recent surveillance calls for you guys in Wakefield.
Yeah, they
I'm
did.
wondering if this is, if the town meeting were to reject the plan, whether this is going to affect our bond rating.
I will tell you that they did ask us if we were compliant, and we are. We're compliant right now because we have to be compliant to the end of the year. But I will tell you over the last few years, and Kevin can jump in as well, that the surveillance team has asked a lot of questions regarding what are you doing about green energy? What are you doing about adopting the energy code, which we have done? What are you doing? A lot of social questions they've asked. It used to be pure finances, right? But they ask those questions. So they do pay attention. They're following the town on social media, looking where we are. I think it's part of their rubric. I do. And I think they will calculate that, if you're not compliant, not only may you have to spend money to fight any suit if it were to happen, which we probably wouldn't because we'd use Tommy Mullen. But still, we might have to outsource other things because we handle all that. But we would be hindered in getting grants. And I will tell you more and more every day you check, there are more and more grants that as a component of the grant, you need to be either MBTA compliant or certified that you will be compliant. And I don't know how anybody could certify that because how do you do that, right? So unless you are compliant, I can certify I am at the moment because, so even DESE grants, I don't know if you see them. I saw one yesterday popped up and it was, it really kind of ticked me off, to be honest. It was a grant, a Metro supplemental grant for special ed costs for Metro, Metco children, which really, I said, this can't be. I said, let me just click on it and see. You gotta be kidding me. So it really is, it's a changing landscape. And I also think that it's taken into account right now for grants, even that maybe, even though we're not out of compliance, if we had been in compliance, I can think of one that we put in $1 million grant under the underutilized property program for the 9-11 Albion Street. Has everything, vibrancy in the downtown, put in the elevator, use the second floor. It's an art space, fits all the criteria for that. Not compliant, and I think that we at least wouldn't mark down on points. Can't prove that, but
Has there been any,
long answer, yes.
has there ever been an attempt to get an extension due to the fact of the court case?
Not that I know of. I don't think, but
Has any community ever thought of doing that?
I don't know. But we have a vote in 2 weeks or 10
No, but
days.
I'm saying if.
If, oh yeah, if we may try.
Yeah.
We're hearing that the SJC may release an opinion by year end, but that's not going to help us between now and.
No, it's not gonna happen between now and town meeting, but if it does not succeed, it's something that we should be looking at to seek an extension. It doesn't really makes any sense, but then again, things these days aren't making a lot of sense.
It works for the real ID, right? That keeps getting pushed forward.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, haven't done that either.
The airplane. Don't be cheap. It's only a few extra dollars.
Okay, then I won't.
Just to be clear, though, the court case that you're referencing is regarding the 40A.
Yeah, 48 with Milton.
Milton.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's a case of first impression, so everyone is really gonna.
No, I mean, it's,
At it, yeah.
yeah, and I mean, the Amiga briefs were like.
Yeah.
They haven't-
Hundreds of them. And they gotta know that this is gonna affect so many communities.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll tell you that the young people on the surveillance call, and I will say that they are young people on the surveillance call because they're a lot younger than we are.
I could be-
They knew that this had failed at town meeting, so they are following those issues in town. It's really kind of interesting.
But being failing a town meeting is practically a common occurrence here in this country.
I don't think as much as you think. I'll tell you, Stoneham passed it.
Well, a lot of the first time through.
Stoneham passed it and got a $4 million Mass Works grant for their downtown. Is it?
What are they gonna do with
What do
it?
you call that, Joe?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Is it?
Yeah, that's a little,
What is that?
it's also called
Quid
bribery.
pro quo.
Incentive? I don't know. Lincoln?
I just think if things don't happen, we should at least consider.
I think that the subcommittee, I'm running to their meeting right after this.
Yes.
Put a very good plan together, so I'm hopeful.
Is there any provision of if the court case overturns it?
No.
Any other comments?
Other reason to vote no.
I'll move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman. I'll accept that. Second.
Second.
Thank you all for attending as usual. Appreciate your time, whether here or there. And maybe see you at town meeting. We won't probably have another finance committee meeting before the first of the year unless it's necessary. Yeah, probably in January.
Yeah.
And subcommittees will be putting those together. Thank you much. Have a great night.